The Chicago Bears tried to trade up multiple times in the NFL draft to land one of the top running backs, but they missed out. So does that mean they're going to go sign one in free agency, or is 7th round pick Kyle Monangai enough?
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1, and you can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to amazon.com/FireTVLockedOn to learn more. On the show today, take a look at where the Bears stand now at running back. We'll go through some of the reporting on, they were trying to trade up for multiple running backs in this draft, and that's part of why they traded down a couple of times and took maybe a couple of unexpected players in a couple of spots in this draft. There have been less concretely reported, but still sort of speculative rumors about potential free agent running back targets the Bears could go after since they missed out on the top running backs in the draft. But I'm a big fan of 7th round pick Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers, who I think can provide the Bears plenty in this backfield to where they may not need to go out and add any kind of big name at the position. But I want to start with the most newsworthy aspect of this, the most concretely reported factoid here, because we'll talk about Nick Chubb in a little bit. Nothing's really been reported by anybody credible at that point. I think a radio host in Ohio somewhere said that the Bears might be interested in Chubb, but we haven't really gotten a known, credible reporter connecting those two dots. But we did get more credible reporting on what the Bears tried to do unsuccessfully during the NFL draft. Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune reported that in the second round, where the Bears were picking at 39, they had made multiple calls to try and move up from 39 for the possibility to take a running back. They had made calls from 10 about the possibility of trying to move up for Ashton Jeanty. It sounds like the calls to move up from 10 were not very serious, were not very aggressive. They were just kind of checking and seeing what the price would be, but it wasn't something they spent a lot of time really, digging deep on, and say they kind of heard a price tag, I think, and said, nope, not going to move up and give up that much for the top running back in the draft. In the second round, the Bears were a lot more aggressive there and were trying to find a way to move up from 39, specifically targeting, according to the Tribune, TreVeyon Henderson from Ohio State. And when you look back at how the draft played out, you can see why maybe Ryan Poles decided not to pull the trigger, and then was especially disappointed then when he didn't. Because in that second round, a couple of running backs came off the board right before the Bears picked. At 36, the Browns took Quinshon Judkins. Then at 37, the Dolphins took Jonas Savailanea from Arizona, the offensive lineman. And then at 38, one spot before the Bears were about to be on the clock, the Patriots took TreVeyon Henderson. And so I wonder when, at that point, Ryan Poles was calling about Henderson, and if Poles is thinking, kind of like last year, they talked about moving up for Rome Odunze, but they said, hey, he's going to make it, and Odunze made it to 9, maybe Poles is sitting there going, okay, he's going to make it, and then one pick before they pick at 39, the Patriots take Henderson. So the Bears pivot to Luther Burden, and we were surprised, wow, they took a wide receiver with their first pick in the second round. Clearly, that seems to have been their second choice. Wow, that's quite a voice crack. Their second choice at the position there, or at that pick, because they wanted the star Ohio State running back, and instead settled, in the loosest terms, for a first-round caliber wide receiver in Luther Burden that they're obviously very, very happy with. But there was a clear, aggressive push to try and get Henderson, and they were just one pick away. And it seems to me like a similar thing happened in the fourth round. Dan Wiederer of the Tribune also reported that the Bears were heavily interested in running back Cam Sketibo of Arizona State. And if you look in the fourth round, Sketibo comes off the board and the Bears go elsewhere. So Actually, 2 running backs came off the board right before the Bears pick. So the Bears, after they had traded down from 41, right? They made that trade with the Bills where they moved down from 41 and then up from 72, and they added a 4th round pick from the Bills in that trade down. It was the 109th overall pick there in the 4th round. Well, 5 picks earlier, the Jaguars took Bashul Tutin from Virginia Tech at 104, and then the very next pick at 105 was Cam Skedebo, Arizona State, to the New York Giants at 105. 3 more picks go on, and then the Bears are on the clock at 109, and what do? They trade down from the 109th pick, send it back to the Buffalo Bills of all teams, and then later in the 4th round, the Bears end up taking the linebacker Hippolyte II. But you put it together with Dan Wiederer's reporting, and that they wanted Skedebo at 109. They missed him by 3 picks, and so they traded out of that spot altogether. Clearly, there was an emphasis from this Bears front office in this draft that they wanted some of the top running backs in here. Now, kudos to them, or credit to them, for not just being stubborn and reaching for a running back and just saying, well, we really wanted to take a running back, so the guy we wanted isn't here, so we're just going to take somebody else because we really need a running back. They stuck with their board and took other players at other positions to just take best player available, but it seems like they were really high on Henderson and Skedebo in particular once they missed out on Genty in the 1st round. And I think I also credit Ryan Poles for not overspending to try and trade up for a running back either, especially at the top of the 1st round. But even in the 2nd round, you would have had to give up some sort of draft pick, maybe your 5th round pick, to move up in the 2nd round from 39, and that 5th round pick ends up becoming a freak athlete cornerback in Jay Frazier, who can be a valuable piece for your team. Like, it's nice to have not needed to give up extra draft picks to still be able to address the running back position and get good value in somebody like Nick Monangai, who we'll talk about in just a little bit here. But I think there's a key distinction I want to make sure we're pointing out here, is that it's not as though the Bears are revealing some sort of desperation to upgrade the running back room. They really like TreVeyon Henderson. They really like Cam Skedebo. And I think that says more about those 2 players and this running backs class than it does about the Bears' desperation to add a running back, right? This reporting to me is not Ben Johnson saying, I gotta get a DeAndre Swift upgrade. Get me Henderson, get me Skedebo. It was, I really like Henderson. I really like Skedebo. I hope we can land one of those 2 players. Because I think if Ben Johnson and the Bears were super desperate to just draft any kind of DeAndre Swift running back upgrade, they would have stayed at one of those spots and reached for another running back. At 39 or 41, they could have just stayed there and taken, I think the next running back off the board was RJ Harvey from Central Florida. Or, when they were there in the 4th round, they could have stayed at 109 and taken Trevor Etienne from Georgia, or Jaquavius Marks from USC, Jarquez Hunter from Auburn. Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. All these running backs were there that the Bears could have taken at any of those picks, or even a couple guys that win the 3rd round you could have taken when you traded down from 41, like Caleb Johnson from Iowa, right? You could have reached for any of those guys if you really felt like we need to get a running back upgrade for DeAndre Swift. But they didn't reach for the upgrade for Swift. They waited until the 7th round and said, hey, we'll take a running back once it's actually the best player available on our board, but we're not going to take a running back just for the sake of taking a running back. And so I'm a little bit skeptical then that the Bears are still on the big hunt for the running back upgrade. But I still think they could add something at running back just to provide more depth at that position where they are a little thin as it stands right now. So we'll look at some of the rumors surrounding free agent running backs Nick Chubb and J.K. Dobbins next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Gametime, the best way to get tickets for all of your favorite live events. I have the Gametime app on my phone, and I use it all the time. I actually just got tickets on Gametime this morning to go see the comedian Brad Williams. Really looking forward to that show, because with Gametime, I can see my view from my seat in the venue before I actually purchase my tickets, so I know exactly what I'm getting. And they also have all-in pricing you can toggle, so there's no fees or last-minute expenses that pop up at the end of the checkout process that make your tickets cost way more than you thought they would. So whether you want to go to an NBA playoff game, a Bears football game next season, a concert, a comedy show, a theater event, they've got it all in the Gametime app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So just because the Bears didn't desperately reach for a running back in the draft doesn't mean they won't necessarily still want to add something more at the running back position. I think the debate is how much more and how much they want to spend and what they might go after there. And we can dive into that a little bit more thoroughly in a moment here. But a lot of what has swirled around this and fueled the speculation is there's been rumors and then some social media video from former Cleveland Browns running back Nick Chubb, who remains a free agent. And Chubb has obviously been an extremely successful NFL running back before. We've seen Chubb run like one of the best running backs in football for a couple seasons there with the Cleveland Browns. Made, 4 straight Pro Bowls, had a couple of seasons right around 1,500 yards, had 12 touchdowns a couple times, averaged over 5 yards a carry for 6 straight years, if I could count, of his career. Like, he came in kind of a flurry coming out of Georgia and was great for a while. But then 2023, a couple games in the season, bad knee injury, takes a long time to recover, and I don't know if there's some re-aggravation in there or multiple surgeries, whatever it was, devastating knee injury in 2023, misses most of that season, then half of the 2024 season before he finally comes back this last year, somehow plays in 8 games, has 100 carries, and shows you like, hey, I can still play. Now he's 29 years old, will turn 30 at the end of the calendar year this year, and running backs don't tend to last a ton longer than that. But you can start to talk yourself into the idea of like, hey, maybe Chicago would be a good opportunity to take a flyer on Chubb, see how healthy he is, see what he can still have in the tank, and you're not going to necessarily have to pay him top running back dollar because his production has been down, and you're also not going to come in and ask him to be your every down number 1 running back. You have DeAndre Swift, you have Roschon Johnson, you drafted Kyle Monangai, you still have Travis Homer and Ian Wheeler as well on this depth chart. But it's the kind of opportunity where Chubb could come in, and if he flames out and doesn't do much, that's okay. You've got Swift and Roschon and Monangai and whoever. And if Chubb can somehow get back to being the Nick Chubb that he once was, well, all of a sudden, you could have a steal for a running back who's a 5-yard per carry, 1,000-yard caliber guy. The problem is, it's been 2 full seasons since we've really seen Nick Chubb be Nick Chubb. Right? You look back at last year, 100 carries, but he only averaged 3.3 yards per carry on those 102 carries this past season in Cleveland. Now, not a great Cleveland Browns team, a particularly bad Cleveland Browns offense, and that can influence his low yards per carry number. However, we've also seen Nick Chubb average over 5 yards per carry on some bad Cleveland Browns offenses. Like teams that went 6-10 with Freddie Kitchens. He still had 1,500 yards and 8 touchdowns, averaging 5 yards per carry. Like, this is a running back who, in his prime, when healthy at his peak, was more than able to overcome bad offensive circumstances around him. And so it's a little bit concerning that he comes back into bad offensive circumstances and can't overcome it at this point. I mean, he deserves some benefit of the doubt of, hey, he was still recovering and it was a bad Browns team. And so maybe now in Chicago, it'd be a better team, better offense, better offensive play caller, better offensive line, and less of a workhorse type of role. And he's had more time to recover and be healthier. You could maybe get back to more Nick Chubb. But at the same time, you could get a whole lot of nothing. And maybe that's not the right opportunity for what the Bears want to add to this backfield. I think a free agent like J.K. Dobbins seems more enticing on paper. When you think about someone who's still only 26 years old, turned 27 this season, rushed for 900 yards this past season, 4.6 yards per carry with the Los Angeles Chargers, 9 touchdowns, a physical running back who's still a free agent. So again, you're not expecting him to cost you an arm and a leg either, much like Chubb, although Dobbins himself has had a series of injuries over his career, but at least we've seen him be more productive more recently. And we've seen him, we've seen him come out of the other side, still performing at a high level. I do think Chubb has generally been a better scheme fit for what Ben Johnson wants to do. Dobbins had more success in more gap scheme runs in Los Angeles this past season. And the other news on the running back front here is that, the Chargers used a very rare free agency tag on J.K. Dobbins to try and dissuade teams like the Bears from signing Dobbins. We don't have to get into the nuances of salary cap rules, but essentially the Chargers used an unrestricted free agent tender on Dobbins so that if any team, including the Bears, signs J.K. Dobbins, it will still count in the compensatory pick formula that weighs how many free agents you lose versus how many free agents you sign. Normally, once you get into May like this, the compensatory pick things out the window, and it's sort of just open reign. Who's ever still left will no longer count towards the formula. The Chargers used this tender on him to say, no, if another team signs you, we get compensatory pick credit for it, and they get compensatory pick debt for it, and it accounts into their accounting. Because currently the Bears are slated to get a 7th-round pick. They're projected to get a 7th-round pick next year in compensatory picks for the Tevin Jenkins loss. But if they sign Dobbins to a certain amount of money, they could end up losing that 7th-round pick. It's one way the Chargers can try and protect their ability to still re-sign Dobbins if they so choose. That lasts until training camp. They have to have that tender on him. And so that's a slight wrench, although I think if I'm the Bears, and I think Dobbins is a worthwhile addition to my backfield, I'm going to sign him either way. And ultimately I think that's what it comes down to. So I'm intrigued by both. I think the videos of Nick Chubb working out, he's been posting on social media, look at how healthy and active he is and how ready to go he is. That gives you some peace of mind. I think I will say if the Bears do sign Nick Chubb, they will almost certainly bring him in for a workout first, right? I don't think we're going to get the surprise Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport tweet in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day. Holy crap, the Bears signed Nick Chubb. Where did that come from? I think the Bears would bring in Nick Chubb, have him do a workout in the building, see how healthy he is, see how he performs, take a physical, and then we would hear about a sign. But we'd hear about the visit before we hear about the signing. So I don't think anything like this is imminent and going to pop up as a surprise in any given day now. But you could see where the Bears might look at their running back room right now and say, hey, we'd like to have another body in there. Because, yeah, you got Swift, you got Roschon Johnson, you like Kyle Monangai as a rookie. Travis Homer has some special teams upside there. And then undrafted rookie free agent from last year, Ian Wheeler, is coming off of a torn ACL in the preseason. And so he's not necessarily, we don't know for sure how ready he is right now. I'm guessing he's not 100%. If you think about if his if the ACL tear was in August, we're now then 8 months removed? Usually I think of that as a 9-month kind of injury recovery timeline. Plus we're in the offseason, so they're not going to push it anyway. So the Bears may only have 4 healthy running backs under contract right now. And, in training camp, 4 is kind of the minimum maybe. So I wonder if they might go into this and want to add one more running back to this group. It's just a question, though, of whether that running back needs to be one of these bigger name free agents or, can another camp body undrafted free agent be enough? Because you might have enough talent. You might need more bodies just to kind of have enough ball carriers in training camp to stock up your depth. But you might have enough overall talent at the top between Swift and Roschon Johnson and somebody like Kyle Monangai, who I think we can't overlook as someone who's got a really strong shot at not only making the 53-man roster this season, but contributing right away as a 7th-round rookie. So we'll take a closer look at what's to love about Monangai and what options the Bears might have to fill out that depth next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by our friends at Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Amazon Fire TV is also an Xbox? That's right. You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with the Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No consoles required. You just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go and dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football 25 and Call of Duty, all as easily as you stream your favorite shows. So if there's games like that you've been wanting to play, but you don't want to invest in a full-on console, you can just grab an Amazon Fire TV Stick and be ready to go. It's more affordable. It's easier to travel with. You could take it with you wherever you plug in. Just head to amazon.com/Fire TV locked on to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices including Fire Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. So if not Nick Chubb, and if maybe not J.K. Dobbins, do the Bears need to make a big running back splash? Do they need a running back at all? I mean, you could argue that, okay, they could use some more depth. And I would fully expect that when the Bears announce their rookie minicamp roster, they're going to announce a few more undrafted free agent signings that we just haven't heard about yet. Because so far it's been a pretty small UDFA class. There was a couple of defensive linemen, a linebacker, a couple of defensive backs, and a couple of wide receivers. But like the Bears haven't, as of now, there have been no reported Bears undrafted free agent offensive line signings, for example. And I find it really hard to believe that the Bears are going to sign a single offensive lineman as an undrafted free agent. I think they have already. It just hasn't been reported yet, so we don't know who it is, and we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. But I would guess when the Bears start their rookie minicamp coming up here, we will learn of a handful of other undrafted free agents that have been actually signed to the roster, not just minicamp invites. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if a running back was included in that group, because I don't think the Bears are that desperate to add a new starter at running back. They don't need it. Oh, you can always add more, right? It's not that there's no room to add Dobbins or Chubb, but you don't need Chubb or Dobbins. You know, DeAndre Swift can be your number one running back just fine. We've seen him be a 1,000-yard rusher before. He was disappointing last season, but it's not as though he was like terrible and unplayable, just disappointing. And the upgrades the Bears have made on the offensive line, the upgrades the Bears have made to the passing game, like this is all going to make the running game better and look easier and make DeAndre Swift's job easier, make Roschon Johnson's job easier. Those guys can be a fine number one, number two. And I really believe in Kyle Monangai being a guy, a lot of guys in there. Kyle Monangai being a guy who can have an impact right away as a rookie. Not necessarily someone you're going to want to stash on your fantasy team right away, but someone who, for a 7th round pick, will exceed expectations. I have a lot of confidence in him. Like, you know, one of the main reasons he dropped is, he only ran a 4.6 at the combine, and that's not good. But like, it's not like he ran a 4.8, right? He's not slow per se. He's just not fast, right? And there is a difference there. Yes, he is not nearly as fast as Omarion Hampton, Ashton Genty, Trayvon Henderson, right? Some of the top running backs in the draft. He doesn't have the same type of 40-yard dash speed, but he was particularly quick in his 10-yard split, the first 10 yards of his 40-yard dash. There is some explosiveness and short area quickness where Monangai is not going to bounce a run to the outside, turn the corner up the sideline, and run down the field for 80 yards for a score. Like NFL defensive backs are going to be able to catch him in the open field. That's why he was a 7th round pick. And that's okay because he can still get you 5 tough yards between the tackles. This guy is really hard to tackle. He has great contact balance. He's a physical, tough runner who wants to run over you, is not afraid of contact. And when he invites that contact, the contact doesn't bring him down. You have to wrap up his legs so they cannot run anymore in order to tackle him. Because if you just try and put a shoulder into him or just try and push him or shove him, he's going to maintain his balance, stay on his feet, and keep running. And maybe that's not the kind of player who necessarily shines in training camp when it's non-contact and you don't even have full pads on half the time. Like, this is a pads-on gamer kind of running back who, in the preseason games, he's going to get the ball a ton in the 3rd and 4th quarter of preseason games, and he's going to eat. And we're going to fall in love with Kyle Monangai because he's going to run over somebody, because all throughout training camp, he hasn't been able to run over guys, had to juke him. Like, and then when it's finally the preseason game and somebody on the other team is trying to actually tackle him, oh, that's when it's going to turn on. And that's when you're going to see Monangai really take to form here. And so I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do. That still makes him a number 3 running back, right? This is not a guy who's going to come in and be, an 800-yard rusher this time as a rookie. But he's someone who is very good in pass protection in college. And that blocking ability and that physicality and that toughness is going to endear him to the special teams coaching staff. Like, he's going to find opportunities on special teams. The one other big sort of flaw, if you will, about Monangai is that he was barely ever used as a receiver in college. So it's not to say that he can't catch the ball, but like, he was targeted, what I think it was like 17 times last season for 14 catches for 75 yards and a touchdown. Like, I think he can be a fine receiver. You look across his college career, you don't see a ton of drop passes or anything. He didn't drop any this past season at Rutgers. I just think in their offense, they had other weapons to go to. They used him primarily as a ball carrier. There's a lot of different reasons to suggest why he didn't get as much receiving opportunities there. But I do think he can adjust to that. I think he can offer you some great special teams ability. He played some special teams, especially earlier in college, not as much his senior year when he was more of a featured person on offense, but he has experience on the punt return team, the kickoff coverage team, the kickoff blocking team. I think he can easily, I don't want to say easily, he's in a good position to unseat Travis Homer as that number 3 running back. And that I think you could get to the regular season and your backfield is DeAndre Swift, Roschon Johnson, Kyle Monangai. Those are your 3 running backs, and you're good to go. I mean, do you keep a number 4? Maybe, but I don't know that you have to. I think those 3 guys can give you good depth, and then a 4th on the practice squad, and you're good to go. So that's why I don't feel like it has to be Nick Chubb or J.K. Dobbins. Bring in another undrafted free agent because Ian Wheeler's hurt, and you want to have more guys in the building in case anybody else gets hurt. Build that depth there for sure. Or if you want to sign, maybe a more down on their luck free agent like Jamal Williams would make a lot of sense for me. The former New Orleans Saint and Detroit Lion who worked with Ben Johnson for 2 seasons in 2021 and 2022. Like, he's had a rough last couple of years with Detroit or with the Saints. If you sign Jamal Williams, it's probably a veteran minimum contract. I'm fine with that. You're not signing him to be a 1,000-yard rusher who has 17 touchdowns like he did in 2022. You're signing him to maybe compete, to maybe be a backup and maybe miss the 53-man roster. Like, I think if you're signing J.K. Dobbins, there's more money and more expectations that come with it. But Jamal Williams, and to a lesser extent, Nick Chubb, fewer expectations there. That's more of a veteran body to have some depth there. So we'll see what they ultimately end up doing. I expect it'll either be an undrafted free agent or a veteran free agent, or maybe one of both. But I don't know that the Bears are feeling this big pressure or big urge to go out and make the big splash at running back. If there's an injury at OTAs, minicamp, or training camp, that changes the conversation. But for now, Swift, Roschon Johnson, Kyle Monangai, good enough. And in the modern NFL, if you have a good offensive line and a good passing game, then this stable of running backs can more than get the job done for your offense. You don't need more than this. You can take more than that, of course, but salary cap space is tight, roster space is tight, compensatory pick formula, etc. Like, this is not a desperation pressure, gotta sign one of these backs. So we'll see what Ryan Poles ultimately decides to do. If they do sign one of these running backs, you can be sure we'll break it all down for you right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. If you're looking for, thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. And if you're looking for a second listen today, you can always check out Locked On NFL for more league-wide football coverage, Locked On NFL Draft, Locked On NFL Scouting, and any other Locked On podcast for your favorite teams. We got NBA, NHL, MLB, and college sports covered for you across the country. So go take a listen to another Locked On podcast today for your second listen. Coming back tomorrow, make Locked On Bears your first listen once again for another opportunity to bear down.